Welcome to the Collab Podcast. My name is Michelle.
And my name is Devin.
On this podcast, we explore concepts of self-mastery and community collaboration
Through in-depth panel discussions and intimate interviews with dance's most prominent figures.
Yeah. See my peanut butter jelly snack, pull it ride, busky, painting. That's my sunshine when it's raining. That's my boo, yeah.
Welcome to the Community Lab, everyone. We are so excited. Today's guest is highly accomplished, but also one of the most humble people you will ever meet. Erik Molina began his dance career by opening one of the first dance studios in the South Bay called Emphasis Dance Studio. Erik later became the founding director of Kinections, based out of Otay Ranch High School, and paved the way for other junior teams alike. Shortly thereafter, Erik went on to become a founding member for the Box Dance Studio and artistic director for RIPE, the Box Dance Studio's adult competition team. A trendsetter in his own right, Erik not only helped lead the Box Dance Studio teams to various victories, but also lent his hand and heart in establishing an undeniably strong family culture. Through his passion, elevated artistry, and progressive vision for the dance community, he quickly became a mentor to the youth and a highly sought-after choreographer. Erik further propelled his dance career by moving from San Diego to Sacramento to pursue a Bachelor of Arts degree in dance, a feat that only those who are truly dedicated to the craft can follow. While going to school, Erik continued his dance training with Sacramento-based adult teams Press Play and Sac Modern. Investing over 10,000 hours into mastering his craft, Erik is the epitome of leadership, humility, and inspiration. We are so honored to have you here with us today, Erik. Please welcome Erik Molina.
I don't know if you guys got the right person. I don't know if that's me.
It's definitely
You're so kind. That was very sweet. And thank you for welcoming me. I'm excited to be here.
Preferably, we would have done this podcast in person. We would have moved the earth to make it work so that we could do it in person. But we're kind of in a weird time right now where all of us are quarantined. So we're sort of forced to do this over Zoom, but better than nothing at all.
I was just say, once this is all over, we'll still have to get together.
Oh yeah, definitely. Definitely. Well, let's jump right in. I want to hear a little. So I actually, for those of you that don't know, I didn't meet Erik until later on in his dance career when we actually brought him on to the Box Dance Studio. So I will say that Erik received nothing but high praise in the Benares household because my brother Jordan and Devin had the opportunity to dance with you. So we always heard about this Erik Molina. And, when I remember meeting you for the first time, and I was actually really nervous because I was like, who is this Erik Molina? Like, he's untouchable. And I think that's a testament, number one, to just how much of an impact you had on not only my brother and sister, but just the dance community. And number two, just what an inspiration you are. I think to be able to carry a name into a household and kind of name drop in a weird way, like, oh, Erik, oh yeah, I know Erik. And I think that's a testament to who you are. And now that I have the honor of knowing you, I can say that I know Erik Molina. But before all of that, I'm interested to know and how you started your dance career and what really drove you towards dance.
Before I do that, I do have to return and say, I hold your family and all of your siblings and your parents in a high regard as well. And you guys have been very important in my life too. So I just want to make sure that I return that. As far as dancing goes, I mean, it's been since I was young, there's some baby photos that I have where whenever we're at like a family party or a wedding, I'm just like in some weird pose, doing something, wiggling around. First formal type of experience I had with performing was in kindergarten. So funny story was long. I'll try to make it short. But the kindergarten teacher was passing out a flyer saying, if anyone's interested in a hula hoop contest, go to this class after school before you get picked up or whatever. And we go, and me and my best friend at the time went, and she and I found out that it was a hula dance class, not a hula hoop contest. And not even a contest. So we were like, the teacher is wrong, but we'll do it anyways. And so we ended up doing a couple of rehearsals and prepared to perform at an open house. I don't know, it just felt like magic and it felt like so much fun. And I think from there, I always had an interest in it that just continued on with like watching music videos and trying to copy Britney Spears and Janet Jackson and Missy Elliott. You know, my church youth group did a bunch of dancing. I didn't start taking it more seriously until I want to say end of middle school, beginning of high school. It's like first time I ever took like a workshop or a class that I went and paid for. And yeah, it just kind of grew into, you know, auditioning for some local teams. And I, you know, had the opportunity to go to Otay Ranch High School, which was a brand new high school at the time. So there was a lot of room for establishing things and kind of being the front runners since it was a brand new school. And just kind of going back to the highlights that you were mentioning earlier, the first two were kind of the other way around. So Kinections did happen before Emphasis. So I just want to make sure that timeline was right. But Kinections was kind of a product of air bands at the time. I don't know if any people are listening that are from South Bay, San Diego, or just San Diego in general. Air bands was huge back in the day. And Otay Ranch High School was trying to do air bands, but a lot of people couldn't commit. And then we were left with maybe like 5 or 6 people that were down. And then we ended up just being a talent show performance. And then from that, we became a school assembly performance group. And then the response was awesome. And, you know, people love seeing that. And so we made it a club and it kind of just grew from there.
I remember air bands. So I went to Mount Carmel and I don't know why I ever decided to, but I actually competed against High Voltage. I'll never forget the group name because they were like insanely talented. And I mean, we're talking like the KJ Gonzalez, like KJ Gonzalez was in it. Sherilyn Rubio was in it, who danced with Missy Elliott and is now married to a Jabberwocky. So like, I don't know what I was thinking, like that I could compete against her in air bands, but whatever. I remember air bands.
Yeah. That's awesome because you're probably in some of the videos that I mean, it was dial-up back then, but you would have to download a video online and wait a whole day to watch it. But I remember watching those videos from like Mount Carmel and Rancho Bernardo and all those great dancers. And some of them are still dancing now, like you mentioned.
So tell me, so I apologize for getting that part of the timeline wrong. So you started Kinections, and what was the motivation to actually open Emphasis?
Interestingly enough, it was more situational. At the time, my parents had invested in purchasing a cell phone store from someone in National City. And it was during a time when like Costco, Walmart, Cricket started carrying cell phones. And so I think the person, like not to go too into it, but I think the person that sold the business to my parents knew that was happening and didn't want to have that business. And it didn't do well after a couple of years. And so they had a lease for a commercial property and they just wanted to do something different with it because we weren't turning a profit with the cell phone business, being a mom and pop cell phone store. And so they were kind enough to invest in me a little bit and like help me get some mirrors and like I used a sound system from my room, I think, and an old receiver that we had for an entertainment center. And it was a very small space, but some of the funnest memories that I had. And we would just do classes, maybe 3 to 4 hours on most weekdays and maybe even do some rehearsals and things like that. I wish I had a better space because, the Jabberwockies actually were kind enough to like come out and check out space and they used it once. I know Kinections got to use it once and it was just a really fun hangout. And so that was kind of the motivation, was just kind of to write out the rest of that lease and make the most of it. And my parents saw how involved I was getting with dance and they were kind enough to let us use the space. So.
Do you think you'll ever open a studio again?
You know, with the knowledge I have now, it's like one of those, like if I knew then what I know now through college and now with my career, I'm currently working as an assistant manager with Enterprise Rent-A-Car, and getting to that point, it's like you have to go through a training program. And so I've learned so much about business and just managing and balancing out, costs and profit and all that. So I think I could in the future. I don't think it's anything that I don't think it's something I see in the next couple of years. It's because I have been moving around a lot. And so if I were to do it, I'd want to do it somewhere that feels like home base, either San Diego or Sacramento, where I have, where I have family and people and resources, like a community to pull from. Because where I'm at right now, I don't have that same sense of community that I do in those two areas. So I'm not saying no, but it's definitely something that I always think about. It's definitely in my mind and in my heart.
Well, you have 2 votes for San Diego, that's for sure. And I'm sure we can pull a few hundred more.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you guys are so sweet.
It was funny. We actually had Sai on one of our prior episodes, and we wanted to pull up an older video of Sai's choreography and sort of get his reaction to it. And the video that we pulled up, he was teaching at Emphasis.
Yeah, Sai taught at Emphasis. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Going through memory lane like crazy right now, just talking about this. I'm like, yeah.
Yeah. He was reflecting too in that episode and talked about, how it was sort of in the good old days. I know that sounds very cliche, but that's how it felt. He was very reminiscent of, those were the good times where you didn't have all the pressure from the industry and you were just dancing to dance and you were choreographing to choreograph. So, yeah. So after Kinections, we swapped you up for the box because, like I said, I had the pleasure of meeting you and knowing you and saw what an impact you had on my brother and sister. And I myself was just impacted by your presence. I mean, you just have this great, just positive outlook. And not only positive outlook, but you have sort of this undeniably creative side. And when I think of you, I think trendsetter, I think creative, I think just like an elevated artistry, just to name a few things. And I was really impacted by that. I remember having conversations when we were, thinking about the studio. And I remember even saying to Devin, oh, wow, I'm so, yes, Erik, yes, I just remember being so powerfully overcome by your ideas because I just thought they were so great. And they were you had a way of taking a really far-fetched idea. If it was just me thinking about it, it seemed far-fetched, but you had this really great way of sort of kind of honing it in and making it real and tangible. And that's just one of the things that I love about you. And I think because of you and because of Devin and because of Jordan, I felt comfortable enough to pursue opening the Box Dance Studio. Because I think without you guys, I would have been really scared. But that was a fun journey to have the box together.
Yes, definitely. Again, some of those, I feel like golden days, some great times for sure. And I don't know what great ideas you're talking about because we spray painted plastic bags with gold paint and made vests, and you guys let me do that.
Trendsetter.
No one's doing that. That is a trend that did not catch on, and that's good it didn't. But definitely, I appreciate you giving me a platform to do that. And I had been doing it for a while with friends, in school. We were Kinections. And Devin might recall too, we were hosting our own workshops and bringing in guest choreographers, and we're giving each other a chance to choreograph and teach. And to be able to do that outside of high school as an adult was awesome. And I learned a lot from you too, out there, Michelle, with your career background and your knowledge of that kind of gave me the launching pad, which actually kind of encouraged me to go further, to go to college and to kind of want to be better. So a lot of that comes from you too. I don't think you guys give yourself enough credit. Your whole family was a huge inspiration to me during that time. Being given that place to be creative, I think, is what really fueled it. Because, for part of my life, like, I was kind of like told not to do some of these things for various reasons, like whether it be religious or just different perspectives. I've always kind of leaned more towards the feminine side on a lot of things. But you guys really embraced me and gave me a place to feel comfortable to be myself and just to try out creative ideas, even if some of them were crazy. But yeah, no, I still to this day go back and watch different performances and classes, while with the box and Ripe and the studio. So definitely great times.
I know. Thank you, Erik. I think something that I've always kind of appreciated about you is that you have this way of being so vulnerable, but making it look effortless. And I don't think I ever gave you enough credit for how much courage that took to be yourself. Because when I first met you, I was like, oh, Erik is so cool. He's like this amazing dancer. He's so chill. And you just seem so level-headed. But at the same time, you looked very passionate about dance. I just felt like I could be my weird self around you. And I think a lot of people appreciate that when they get the chance to like interact with you and meet you, is that they can be themselves. And I think that was an amazing quality about having you as part of our boxes journey, is that you brought out a lot of great characteristics in our dancers. So thank you. I feel like I should have tissues for this episode, but I didn't.
I know. Same here. No, I appreciate that. And it's funny you say that. And it's just because in my mind, that's not at all what was happening. Definitely grown from those experiences to be more confident. And it kind of just goes to that, like, fake it till you make it. Because if I think back to those years, like where I didn't feel cool. But being in an environment like dance, I mean, I guess like that's probably where I felt the most myself, which is why I was, in a sense, now I can reflect and say that's probably why I gained confidence through those experiences. And I don't even know how to respond to that, Devin, because it's so sweet. And I didn't know, like, I don't have that perspective of myself right off the bat, so to hear those kind words is really encouraging.
A lot of the positivity and the inspiration that we're talking about, it's really, I believe that to be that type of person, you learn those behaviors from someone. So where did you learn to be like that?
Hands down, my parents. Like, without even thinking twice to that question, they're definitely the foundation of my character. Being raised in a Christian household, of course, there are a lot of things that are emphasized. Being selfless and just being giving and forgiving. And so I think that's really, my parents, they're so patient with me, my brother, and my sister, and just the people that they interact with, and just their love, I feel like, is always what I look up to and try to aspire to be. They're my biggest inspirations. Yeah.
That's beautiful. That's every parent's dream. I hope that Cameron will grow up one day and say that I inspired him to be a positive person.
I'm sure he will.
Well, that's awesome. And, Devin and I have had the pleasure of knowing your parents, for as long as we've known you. And yeah, they're pretty amazing. So I believe that that's where you get it from.
Same with your parents.
Thanks. Yeah. Our parents are a little bit kooky, but.
So are mine, but kookie's awesome. Your parents have made me laugh on many occasions, and I love it.
I remember, again, reflecting, it was a really hard day when you told us that you were going to make the decision to move to Sacramento, because that meant that we didn't have access to our Erik that we always had access to. But tell us what kind of went into that decision making, and really what helped you make the decision to pursue dance through a full degree, a full bachelor's degree.
With junior college, like straight out of high school, I started with junior college. I was originally going into either math as a major or liberal studies. I've always wanted to be a teacher. Kids played house. I played classroom. And I put like a classroom number on the door and had Jazel, Elaine, and Josiah come in. And I made math worksheets when I didn't even know the answers to them and gave them crayons to do their homework in my room. So I always wanted to be a teacher. But in junior college, I ended up taking more dance classes than I did general ed. And which is why I had a long time at junior college. And so after that, I just decided, since I was already putting so much time into it and dancing, that I started to see that I could actually make it into a career and have more experiences with it. I wanted to go to San Francisco. But I applied there in Sacramento, and the year before I was with Super Galactic and we performed at Public Display, which is the annual show that happens in Sacramento. And I really fell in love with the people and the place, and I thought it was a cool place. So when I got accepted in Sac State, it was like an easy decision. I had some people to already like connect with, instead of just going somewhere that, it was completely new to me. And it was a tough decision because there was a lot that was going for me in San Diego. But to be a little transparent, I feel like I can do this now with a lot more ease and maturity because it's something to look back on and it's something of the past. While there was all those things that were going great, there was also a lot of things that were kind of hindering me. I was having a lot of fun, if we want to just put it lightly. And so I wanted to be able to subtract myself from those things so that I can better myself. At that point in time, I would have been the first in my family out of the children to go to university. So I think that was also, going back to my parents, like I wanted to also make them proud. And so have the opportunity to do what I loved, which was dance, but still achieve a goal that they had set for me, which is to get a degree. To be able to do both was, it was like a no-brainer.
What are some of the takeaways that you got from getting your degree in dance?
That there's just so much dance, and there's so much more to it than an 8 count. And it is a science, it's an art, there's theory behind it. And if you think you're original, think again. Right? I mean, I used to say this. I kind of remember a quote that I used to say, like, none of you choreographers, none of you dancers invented walking. None of you invented raising your arm or hitting a beat. Like those are things that we get to experience and that we know. So it gave me a perspective of like, stop trying to like be the one or be the originator but really embrace learning, right? Major takeaways, like I learned a little bit of tap and musical theater and jazz, ballet, and all those things now, even though my main vehicle of choreography or dance is like hip hop inspired, all of those styles and genres influence that and have only strengthened it. Yeah, just appreciating the history, the theory, and just seeing that there's so many more people who hold dance in the same regard as I do was so encouraging. So I encourage, for anyone that's listening that's a dancer, if you really have a passion for it, like I definitely encourage getting an education in it. Because it's great nowadays. We do have the resources like YouTube and especially now, all these virtual classes, there's so much more that's accessible to you, but there's still so much more out there. There's people have this perspective, like dance majors, like, oh, it must be easy. Like you get in there and shake your butt and like you get a degree. And it's like, I had to write those papers the same length as the papers you wrote about cultural dance and history and the origins in Africa, the origins in this country and that country. And like, I can go on for hours. There's there's so much more than just learning some choreography.
It helps you put it into perspective. I love what you said about dance is so much more than an 8 count, right? And I think as dancers and even just as people in general, we have a tendency to live in our own bubble, and we're just in the moment, the right then and the right now. It's really hard sometimes to look outside ourselves and look beyond that. And I think that if we can just take a moment and stop, and really kind of like absorb that and digest that information, I think it will really open up so much more in your perspective and the way that you see things and the way that you see the world.
You don't see it when you watch these great choreographers like Jillian Myers and Paris Colbell and Keone and Mari, but they have foundation and education and self-research that's behind them. There's so much that informs like who they are as choreographers and as artists than just learning from the classes alone. And I think so that they're exactly doing what you're saying, is like really observing and taking in all that information and using that as like a launching pad to be as creative as possible. And I think that's when people get unique, right? It's like, it's not a specific move. It's not a specific style or the song even, but what makes them unique is like their wealth of knowledge and what supports like the intention and the storytelling behind the movement. I think that's really where great artists come from.
It must have been our time together at the box, but I do remember saying what you said earlier about how nothing is original. Everything has already been done. And I think what makes it unique, like you said, is the person's experience and their interpretation of it. But I have to say, Erik, when I watch you dance, I feel like you are so unique in the way that you dance, and it's so specifically Erik. And I feel like that is not the best way to put it. So how would you describe the way that you dance or your artistic dance style?
If I were to break it down and be like more specific to like what influences it, it comes from my first dance experience from hula. I also played violin when I was a kid, so a lot of my movements are very legato or long and flowy, and so I think that's where a lot of that comes from. And then a lot of the movement now, after having the college education, comes from modern and contemporary and jazz, and how they have influenced my movement. And so, yeah, it just kind of draws back to what we were talking about. Like it's a culmination of me, and a lot of like, when I did work with teams and groups of people, a lot of the staging and blocking comes from my experience of like choreographing like cotillions and like having these like circles and symmetrical shapes and like interlacing lines and stuff. A lot of that comes from that. And there's also cultural dances. I did when I was young. I know Devin and Jordan, you guys did a lot too. Michelle, did you do Filipino folk dance as well? No?
No. I just made them do it for me.
You just were in the audience watching and appreciating.
Exactly.
But yeah, a lot of those things influence like the styles and the choices that I make too, I believe.
Whenever I do your choreography, I feel very balanced. I feel very centered. And I think that speaks to what you're saying about these circular and symmetrical movements. And I think that's very comforting to a dancer. Now, I don't want to take away from how challenging your class was last night, because I was drenched in sweat by the end of it. But yes, that feeling of centeredness and balance, I do get that from whenever I get the opportunity to do your choreography.
I was thinking about it too. Something that I did in high school that I haven't mentioned yet is color guard. And so I think a lot of those circular arm movements that I do, I mean, of course, like whacking, punking, and voguing influence like my style of movement. But like a lot of these circular movements and like rotating things come from those like spinning a flag or a rifle, or like the things I learned about like planes and lines while in color guard and marching band. Like you have to follow a line and march in a direction. So
I auditioned for color guard. Yeah.
You did?
Yeah.
Mount Carmel's color guard was really good.
They were and
like,
that made me.
They were Devin's like world
laughing.
class.
Devin's laughing because she knows the story. I went to my audition. I felt like super like strong about my audition. And I was like, yes, I'm going to kill it. I was like throwing the rifle, catching it every single time. And I went in the audition so nervous because none of my friends wanted to do it with me. And I went into the audition and you had to do a little bit of choreography, and then you throw the rifle and you're supposed to catch it. I dropped it and I was mortified. And I ran out of the audition. I didn't even pick up my rifle.
Oh, no.
So that was the end of my color guard career.
But it led to other things. It led to air bands, right?
There you go.
I want to go back, Erik, and we talked about a little bit about your style, but I want to know a couple of things. Number one, how has your style evolved from pre-bachelor's degree to now? And then the second part is I want to hear your opinion on how the dance community has evolved from the time that you started dancing to what it is now.
Going back to my style and how it's changed, I think I just have more awareness of why I'm making choices that I'm making. I think essentially a lot of the movement choices are still similar, like arms and lines and circles, and that mixed with like more fluid motion. Just to use as a small example, when I was choreographing the piece for the class that we had last night, I noticed at the beginning I was using a lot of my right arm, and I was like, I need to add a little bit more balance. So towards the end, I started using more of my left as a leading. So just being aware of those choices, having that degree has really given me that knowledge to be aware of choices and things like that. I'm going to kind of backtrack because like prior to yesterday's class, as you two know, I have not been dancing as active for the last couple of years. So if I would say from before college to like when I was dancing right after college, I definitely started to incorporate a lot more floor work and modern movement. So modern movement really teaches you how to use your breath and how to use your weight, really teaches you about quality of movement and textures. And so I think a great example was one of the later pieces that I choreographed for Press Play. I'm trying to recall the year, but it was to a piano version of All of Me by John Legend. And it incorporated a little bit of tutting, and there's a lot of contemporary fluid movement, and there's a lot of floor work. There's a little like leg flare thing that I learned from my modern teacher, Philip Flickinger, which I could not do before college. Could not even like sit on the ground for 10 minutes without my legs dying, but college definitely increased my physical ability. And shout out to Josh Florido, by the way. He actually recorded that piano version for us for the show. So college definitely gave me more strength in my body and more awareness of my facility and how to use like my levels and how to really incorporate more to it than just, I think I used to just do a lot of standing and maybe stayed in a box, which is like popular nowadays, a lot of that stuff that's going on now, which is great. It's still dance. It's still awesome. It's still fun. But college definitely taught me to use levels and faith and my whole body and to be flat on the ground all the way to high up in the air and all that. Now, the second question, how the community or dance has evolved from the time when I started to where it is now. I think the biggest thing, if I were to summarize it, is just accessibility. It's so much more accessible. And then that's just like a lot of other things now with the technology we have. There's just so much content that you can consume, whether it's videos on YouTube or what used to be going to shows, which we're not able to do right now. But just taking classes, there's so many more videos now. So the accessibility has definitely changed. And I know some people might have the perspective, like a lot of us old folks that have been dancing for a long time are like, oh, I remember the good old days, which I think like that sometimes too, because it just felt kind of more sacred and special and unique to be a part of something that was just like not many people were into. But it makes me happy to see more people are into it now, especially like in a time like now with, this pandemic and everyone really kind of having to reevaluate a lot of things and just kind of take time and slow down. And you really see that there's more people that are dancers than want to claim they're dancers. It's definitely something that's an innate human experience, I think. It's simple as like doing a 2-step, standing on your dad's shoes as a little girl, to like wiggling around at a wedding. Like everyone's a dancer, like everyone moves. Like when we hear music and there's a good beat, like it's natural to bob your head. And I think that part will never go away. So for me to see, it actually excites me that it's more accessible, because seeing more people get into it kind of makes it more enjoyable for me personally. So while there are those things that kind of make it like played out or sold out, or like there's so much content, or it's just so competitive, while there are those truths to people who are pursuing a career, I think generally speaking, it's been better in the fact that more people are doing it and relating over that. It's definitely, I feel like dance brings the world together. And so that's probably the biggest thing. You used to be like, oh, New Yorkers and they're breakdancing, in LA with their pop and lock, and like the Fresno was from Fresno. But now it's like you see people from all over the world, and it's not even about where the move came from, but how they're bringing all those things together and making it one beautiful thing.
That was a great answer.
Yeah, I think especially now, like you said, during a pandemic, there's a call to community that's been stronger than ever. And if dance can fulfill that sense of belonging for people, then that's amazing. Dance is so powerful. And I love that you brought up the point that dance is for everyone. Dance does not discriminate. Dance does not judge. If you hear a beat and it makes you feel good and you feel inspired to move, then that is dance.
Yes, definitely. I agree. And then something in college that I learned too is like, we think of dance only to music, but there's a whole genre of movement movement to no sound is also a choice, right? Movement to words is also a choice. If you ever people watch, like I remember standing at the terrace of like the Cheesecake Factory in San Francisco overlooking Union Square, I think it is, and just watching like the patterns of people moving, and some people are running and some people are walking and some people are just standing, and you're just watching these movements, and it's like everybody doesn't know it, but they're dancing. Those things like spatial awareness, I think, kind of to go back to the question earlier about like what the takeaways from college. I think a big thing is like awareness, like being aware of the community at large. Also, in contrast to like literally the 1 or 2 people that you're next to. I think I'm going on a little bit of a tangent there, but that's just another thing that I learned at college.
I love it. I love it. Before we move on, I just want to make this quick comment. I always felt when I took your classes that I felt like I had to push myself to be better. And that was one of the things that I loved about taking your classes, is because I always just felt like if I was going to take Erik's class, I knew I was going to come out an hour later better than I was the hour before. So thank you for that. And if you didn't get a chance to take a class from Erik, well, then you have surely missed out. So let's move on and let's talk about some of your passions outside of dance, because you have quite a few.
Yeah, I just like too many things. I currently, within the last 2 or 3 years, I think I've really started, I've always kind of had an interest in it, but I've really started to get into makeup. And whether that be, like a little light beat like this today, or more artistic expressions of like, I'm trying to learn more like illusion stuff and like special effects stuff maybe in the future. And I don't consider myself a drag queen because I don't perform. Not to say that I would never, but I also like to get in drag and flip my hair around and feel like a woman sometimes. It's a lot of fun. Something I've also been interested in since I was young, but hasn't really materialized until now as an adult when I can more afford it. It's not a cheap hobby. And also with the increase of popularity with like RuPaul's Drag Race and just more mainstream queens and stuff. But there's a lot. Like I love to cook. Your dad's a big inspiration with that. And I also love music. I used to play guitar. Haven't really done it in a while, but I love to sing. Not that great at it, but I love to pretend like I'm Jennifer Holliday sometimes. And no, there's definitely a lot of things. I think it's all centered. Like if I were to culminate it into one thing, it's definitely musical theater, right? Like, I mean, you're talking about dance, you're talking about singing, makeup, dressing up. Like, you know, I'm a musical theater kid that never got to have a musical theater childhood. And so I think that's where I'm at now is I've been extremely into going to shows, and I'm subscribed to Broadway HD, which is a streaming service. It's not sponsoring this podcast, but if you guys haven't checked it out.
If they want to sponsor
I know,
us.
if Broadway HD, if you hear this, we've already paid for a year subscription, but I'll take another year. But it's really cool. They have a lot of really cool classic musicals, like the original Cats is on there. A lot of cool musicals. So I think if I were to sum it up, I'd say musical theater, because that's kind of like the intersection of all those things that I mentioned before. Maybe not cooking. I don't know if they do that on theater, but.
What about Broadway? Have you ever considered Broadway? Is that something that's in your goals?
I mean, definitely. It's like going back to the answer of like, will you ever open up a studio? It's like, of course I want to. I'd love to be on Broadway someday. That would be a dream, and I have dreamed of that. I'll be honest, I haven't really been pursuing it kind of in the way that I was like during college and like right after college. But yeah, if an opportunity came up and if, you know, more doors opened up to where I could do that, even if it was like doing makeup for a production backstage, oh my God, that would be awesome. Or even just doing one facet, like being a choreographer. To be involved in musicals or Broadway or just stage productions would be awesome. The closest I've had so far is in college. There was a production of a play called Flight. Forgive me, I can't recall the author of the play, but our one of our director at our college took it and kind of like added to it. And so it's a story about during slavery times in America, and it's like storytelling of like liberation in a nutshell. They incorporated a lot of like African drums and beats and like polyrhythmic like speaking and clapping and stuff. And so I was part of the ensemble, and so I was able to dance and perform and sing in that. So it's kind of the closest I've ever had to something like that.
Tell us about, let's talk about how you sort of went from dancer to your corporate career, because that's quite a shift, right? I mean, you got your degree in dance, and then all of a sudden you went corporate. So talk to us about that transition.
So after college, so it's kind of like a gradual transition. So after college, I applied for the Disney College program, which allowed me the opportunity to live and work in Orlando. I worked as an attractions cast member, so I didn't work in entertainment, but I did go and audition for some stuff in entertainment. And so I can say during that time, it was a bit discouraging because I had just gotten my degree in dance and I was going to these auditions at Disney World, and I was getting a lot of compliments from people as far as like, wow, you're a great dancer, you're picking up the choreography at some of these auditions. But when it came down to like height and size and, you know, a lot of the specifics that they were looking for, like, you know, there's no other way to cut it than to say that I wasn't what they were looking for. And a lot of people are like, well, can't you be a costume character? And like, well, they're very specific. If you don't know Disney standards, like, you know, a lot of like Mickey's and Minnie's and like a lot of the shorter characters have to be a very certain height so that they're not like a 6'2" Mickey Mouse. And there's a lot of like other characters that have to be extremely tall, like a Captain Hook or a Chewbacca, or any of those taller characters have to be 6 foot something. And then a lot of like the face characters have to be these like beautiful white princesses or princes, you know, and a lot of those things are changing. It was a little discouraging at that time to like go for these auditions and be complimented on my ability as a dancer, but still not make it because I didn't fit that. So I made the choice to come back to California. I also wanted to be closer to Jonathan, my boyfriend, because we had been long distance for a year, me being in Florida. And so at that point, I was like, you know what? Like, I want to work. Like, I was at a point too where my dad was also like working full-time still and being a full-time pastor. There would be times where I would still, need support from my parents. And I wanted to eliminate that so that he could focus on just being a full-time pastor and not have to work full-time to support me still. And so I was like, I really had to reevaluate my life and just be like, let me make some sacrifices. Like, dance at that point in time wasn't going the way that I was wanting it to go. I wanted to be able to like support myself and work at a job where I could have that full-time income and those benefits and contribute to my family instead of taking from, and also to be back in California with friends and family and Jonathan. And so I just threw my resume out online in the interwebs and Monster.com, Indeed, and all those places. And Enterprise actually came and found me. And I feel like a lot of that has to come with the experiences that I had with like Disney College Program and prior retail experience, and also directorship with the Box and Kinections. I always put those things on my resume because of the leadership that it shows. And I think those are the things that stuck out to them. But what stuck out to me was like Enterprise's, like their core values and their focus on integrity, and it's a family-owned business. And so I actually, in interviewing, I fell in love with the company and the potential to train. So it wasn't that I was looking for a corporate job, but I was just looking for a job. And when that opportunity came across to me and they're like, here's a full-time opportunity, these are going to be your benefits, you have the potential to promote. Those were the reasons why I decided to make the switch. In a nutshell, it was kind of like to sacrifice my own individual goals to like really support like the bigger picture and my family goal. And thank the Lord, today my dad's retired from his full-time job as a engineer, and he's a full-time pastor of Family Life Church of the Valley in Temecula. He gets to spend more time with my mom, and he doesn't have to have the stress of having two jobs. He's able to be accessible on a daily basis to his congregation and his family, his community family. So I'm not the only one that's contributed to that, but being able to support myself as an adult has definitely played a big part in him and my mom being able to do what they're doing now.
I'm so happy for your dad, and I hope he's happy too. I'm sure he is.
He seems happy. He's, yeah.
So making a decision like that to kind of pivot away from dance, I feel like it would take a lot of self-awareness, and I feel like it would take a really strong intuition. So can you speak to how you've built that sense? And was it always like that? Did you always feel like you kind of knew what you want?
I think in moments it feels like I know what I want. And a lot of times those desires kind of guide choices that lead to other things that I don't expect. You know what I mean? And I think with the intuition, I really have to say it's the Holy Spirit. I have to bring it back to the foundation that I was raised on. And to me, that's what my gut is, right? Like following that inner voice. Like, people are going to call it different things. You call it your conscious, you call it your inner gut, your intuition. And some people, like myself, with the way that I was taught, really identify with knowing that it is from somewhere else and it's a higher power. And so I think that's really where the core is at. There's moments in my life where I hear that voice and totally ignore it and go the opposite direction, but those have also taught me a lot of lessons. I think with this particular instance, there was a moment where I was at my brother and now sister-in-law's wedding, and just seeing that the joy they had as a family and like their goals to start a life together. That moment was just really inspiring, and to want to have like what they had, and to want to pursue that. It kind of, there was a point in time where I really like dance get to me, and I was like, what I wanted was, I wanted to be a famous choreographer, and I wanted to have this many views on YouTube and everyone would follow me on Instagram. I'm like, I can say that now. I can look back and say that there was a point in time where my mind was going in that direction. But I think a moment like that, like my brother's wedding, was just like one of those moments where it's like, wow, like this is what's really important to me is my family, and being able to enjoy more moments like this with them. And like in a time like right now, I think, with shelter in place, this has been another moment where it's kind of made me look. And now that I've gone the corporate way and taken time away from dance, it's made me reflect back and stop and think like, well, like there is that part of me that I have been ignoring a bit and that I want to go back to with the right amount of balance and practice. And if I really continue to follow that inner voice in the Holy Spirit, I can do both, and I can find a way to make the most of all those avenues and really excel in them. I think I strayed away from your question, but it's like, how much do I owe you guys for this therapy session? Because being able to just like talk about these things is really like making me reflect and put things into perspective. And so thank you.
It's just as much therapy for us as it is for you, I think.
Yeah, I was just going to say the same thing. And I think that, kind of going back to what you were saying about, just following your inner gut, or in your case, the Holy Spirit is really what guides you. I think we all kind of find it in our own way, and we all believe in our own sort of thing. And I'm going to speak for Devin here. I think what we believed in was you. And as weird as that sounds, every time we came to a crossroads, or every time we felt stressed, or every time we felt like we were lost, it really was, the joke was, it's not really a joke because we really did ask you, but it was like, what would Erik do? What would Erik say in this situation? And I know that, we've called you many times and you've really helped guide us. This is not the forum to do that, but, we want to thank you. And I think we want our listeners to know how much of an impact Erik has had on us. And he's really been our guiding light.
I don't know who you guys are talking about. Wrong person again. I'm just kidding.
No, it's definitely the right person. And it just feels weird to sit here and to say that we've known you for 12 years now.
Yeah.
Just about. And it just feels like I haven't thanked you enough. So it feels like I haven't fulfilled my duty in showing my gratitude to you. I don't know. I don't know if I'll ever be able to.
I can't show my gratitude to you guys enough as well. And I know I've expressed it before, but I feel like it doesn't even capture. I mean, what these girls aren't saying, listeners, is how much their family was really there for me during a time when I wasn't being there for myself. I think had I not had the platform with the box, and also the support of your family, you guys fed me. And you guys gave me a place to go to and just feel safe. And there was a point in time where my family kind of had to be spread out. My parents made the move to Temecula. My sister wanted to still be in San Diego. And so we kind of had to spread our wings. And the situations that we lived in weren't always the greatest because of what we could afford at the time. And there was even points in times where we were couch surfing. And so you guys don't know the impact you guys had on providing me a sense of family when my family was not physically there. And, countless occasions where I can really think back to and just, I'm grateful. It wasn't even like you guys bought me McDonald's and stuff. Your family was taking me to House of Prime Rib and trips to San Francisco. And I don't forget those things. It was great times. I mean, yeah. And I could never thank you guys and, your parents and your siblings enough for being that part of my life.
Thank you. I don't want to get caught in a circle of thank yous, but thank you. Thank you so much. And I think one of the greatest gifts that dance has given me is our friendship with you. There have been a lot of times where, like Michelle said, we've felt uncertain. And even before the studio, I was just this awkward middle school, freshly into high school teenager that didn't really know herself, but you gave me the opportunity to be on Kinections and gave me a space where I felt like I belonged. And high school is not a good, some people love high school and they can look back on those years fondly. For me, I struggled a lot in high school. And the one thing that I loved about that time was that I was on Kinections and that I felt like I was able to make some good memories there. So speaking to that whole sense of gratitude and what dance has brought me, I would love to hear from you. What is the one thing that you're most grateful for dance? What has dance given you?
Definitely family. I think yesterday's class was a true testament of that. My cousin was on there. People from Kinections were on there. People from the box. People from Sac State, from Press Play, Sac Modern. Even some new faces that I just met and haven't particularly danced with. But it's given me family. My closest friends outside of my blood family are all people who I've met through dance. And if I didn't meet them through dance, I met them through someone who I met through dance. So that's the biggest thing, is it's given me family.
That's awesome. So we've talked a lot. Hopefully our listeners are crying by now because we've done a lot of like really emotional talk. If you're not crying, then you need to rewind the episode and listen to it again. I'm just kidding. But let's go ahead and do something that we've done with all of our guests. And let's do a quick rapid fire set of questions.
This is what I was nervous about. Let me drink some water really quick. Hold on.
We're going to try to get through as many of these questions as possible. So just say whatever is at the top of your mind.
Ready? Go.
Singing or dancing?
Singing while I'm dancing.
Choreo or freestyle?
Freestyle.
Showcase or competition?
Showcase.
Solo or with a team?
Team.
Favorite piece you've ever choreographed?
Blow by Beyonce.
Favorite choreographer?
Toss up between Mandy Moore and Jillian Myers.
Favorite artist to dance to?
Right now, Dua Lipa.
Student or teacher?
Student.
Sacramento or San Diego?
San Diego.
And that's time.
Oh, that's tough. You can't make me choose. I mean, San Diego is always home. I know that's time, but like to speak on it, like San Diego is always home. It will always be home. And it's such a beautiful city outside of that. And I appreciate it so much more having been away from it. But SAC is really great too. For a lot of people that don't know, like SAC is an awesome place, and it's a good mix of like small town and big city. And it's definitely like a hidden gem. It's not so hidden anymore. I think it's grown a lot. And there's a lot of great talent that comes out of SAC that people don't even know. Like quality over quantity. I feel like SAC definitely. I can't choose.
That was a tough one.
Yeah.
I want to talk about your piece To Blow by Beyonce for Press Play. That piece was amazing. I love piece so much. When you heard that song, did you know right away that you wanted to choreograph to it? And how long did it take you to choreograph to?
It's one of those songs, like when you hear it, like you just can't help but move to it. I mean, me personally, and I love a lot more like funky styles, and like I think the time that it took to choreograph to it, gosh, if I think back, it's probably a couple of days. Like when I work on choreography, it's a mix of like doing something else and listening to the song and thinking of like what musicality I want to hit, and then actually going into like a studio or a space where I'm working and spending hours like physicalizing those things. So, I mean, I feel like it was maybe like 3 to 4 days of like 2 to 3 hours at a time. But in between those times, I was having the song on repeat and already mapping out like, it's like a sketchbook and then going in and slapping on your paints. It's like a good analogy I can think of. So it's definitely a mix of like the time listening to a song and sketching the ideas out and putting it in. Probably totaled like 3 or 4 days, like 12 hours for that piece.
Something that I remember that you would have us do for creative purposes was using shapes as inspiration for movements. And you brought a lot of those really impactful exercises into our rehearsals and just our time together. So what's something that you turn to when you're lacking inspiration for movement?
Freestyle is definitely one of the best places to go. My college education has some of the classes we took were focused on improvisation. I could take inspiration from my surrounding. I could take inspiration from maybe the clothes that I'm wearing. If you come across a rut and you need inspiration, just look at anything around you and find that shape and recreate it with your body. And then it'll just get you out of like trying to find the right move and just coming up with a move. And then just getting your mind off of the thought of like, you need to have this kind of move, and just focusing on something to inform you really gets you back into a creative mindset and kind of like frees you up again. I remember some of those exercises, like just kind of looking around if there's a square tile, like making a square or drawing a circle with your arm, or now if it's not with your arm, drawing a circle with your foot or with your head. Like all of those things, you know, just that one idea of a circle can inform so many different other ideas.
I remember you would have us do across the floors and you would tell us, okay, spell out your name with your body. And everyone looked at each other like
what?
What? And I always look forward to it because it just was like, okay, this is permission. You're giving us permission to just do weird stuff. It doesn't have to look great. Just like move in the space.
I want to go back to just a couple of the rapid fire questions that we didn't get to because I felt like they were pretty good gems, and I'm interested. So what's your favorite makeup brand?
Ooh, that's tough because I have like favorite things from different ones, you know? Like currently my foundation, I like Too Faced Born This Way. That whole line of primers, foundations, and concealer, that's my favorite. I think Morphe's kind of up there for me right now because I feel like they're a good balance of like the affordability of like what drugstore would be and like the quality of like these higher ends, and the quality of their brushes are amazing. So I'd say overall, I would say Morphe's my brand right now.
Sponsor us.
I know, right? Give me a code. I would be down.
Use code Erik Molina at checkout for Morphe. 20% off.
If only. Someday, maybe. Who knows?
And then the second question that I had is, what's your favorite Kinections medley?
One that I was in performing, I don't think we ever named it. It was, we wore like purple, green, and blue. And it had Zingy and Kitty Box by Momo. I think the particular performance we performed at like a culture night at Eastlake High School or something, but that was a favorite performance that I was a part of. And that was like when I was a senior. And so like Stephanie, C-Cat, and Princess and Amanda, and like, you know, they were already a part of Kinections. Favorite set that I was not a part of, but was directing, was the 90s medley that Kinections did for A.B. Samahan. We did like Joyful by Sister Act, and did a bunch of like 90s throwback stuff. And so I just thought that was really fun. Sunny Kaladia was directing alongside me and Momo at the time. So between the three of us, three very different, distinct styles, we were able to make something that I feel like was really strong. And they actually took first place at A.B. Samahan that year.
So one other thing that I want to know, this is not a rapid fire, so you can take your time to answer it. What are you watching these days on your stay-at-home orders? Are you binging anything?
I mean, we were already binging a lot of stuff before the stay-at-home orders, but I really like Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist. Have you guys heard of it?
I've heard of it. I heard it's really good. A lot of people have recommended it to me.
If you love singing and dancing, it's like a no-brainer, but like I feel like the storylines are really good too. Alex Newell is one of the people from Glee, and then Skylar Austin, I think his name is Skylar Austin. He's from Pitch Perfect. So they're in the show, like they're main characters in the show. And Mandy Moore is one of the main choreographers. And I'm not talking about Mandy Moore from This Is Us or like Candy fame. I'm talking about Mandy Moore, like the choreographer. And then I think Jillian Myers is an assistant. So like I've got Mandy Moore and Jillian Myers working on the show. It's like, I love the choreography. It's really awesome. I'm still stuck and up to date with Grey's Anatomy. Like that's always been like my go-to show. I'm like diehard. I love it. I was watching a show called The Fosters on Freeform, which they have a spinoff called Good Trouble. And then there's also Bold Type, I think is on Hulu. I don't know if that's Freeform, but it's about these 3 girls that work for a magazine. This Is Us. I'm really into like stuff that like teenage girls would be into. I feel like more emotional dramas or like story, like strong female leads are like what I really like identify with, I guess.
So stuff that makes you cry.
Yeah, stuff that makes me cry, or that's like almost like corny comedy. That's kind of like some people might find cheesy, but like I don't mind. So it's kind of like the two, they're kind of opposite of each other.
I started watching This Is Us when it first came out, and I think I made it through the first season. This is when like I was still watching Cameron, and he was a baby, so I had a lot of time on my hands. But I had to stop watching it because it just every episode made me cry. Actually, I think Cameron may have been old enough to see that I was crying, and he would ask like, well, what's the matter, Ninong? Why are you so sad?
That's cute.
But that's a great show.
Yeah.
This Is Us. It's a great show. And Milo, but he's just, oh my gosh, he is just one delicious little.
It's like
I probably can't say.
Yeah.
The thing that I want to say, we would have to bleep on the podcast, but he is wonderful. I love watching him.
I can agree to that. It's definitely easy on the eyes.
Well, that was really a selfish question because I've run out of things to watch. So thank you, Erik.
Yeah, of course. What are you guys watching right now?
We're watching a lot of Trolls. We're watching a lot of Trolls over and over. Trolls World Tour. Cameron knows all the words to the songs. It just got released today, which goes to show you how many times we watched it. We're watching a lot of Frozen 2 in this house, and then we're also watching a lot of Fuller House, which I kind of like because I am like a Full House fan, but Cameron loves Fuller House. So we're watching a lot of those. We do a lot of family stuff. And we go to bed at the same time as Cameron does. So we don't have a ton of like adult time TV. So we watch a lot of like his shows, really, is what we're watching. But I am looking to pick up some other shows like when I have mommy quiet time. So that's why I was asking for your recommendations.
Yeah, you can't always be watching Keeping Up with the Kardashians.
Is that your go-to guilty pleasure?
Totally. Totally. That and the Housewives show. Actually, no, I have 3 guilty pleasure shows. I have Keeping Up with the Kardashians. I have the Housewives series on Bravo. I love the Housewives of Orange County and Beverly Hills and all that drama. And then I also love 90 Day Fiancé.
My coworkers have been talking about that. They are really into it. And then there's also like the before the 90 days or something like that. Yes. I've seen some episodes, and it's definitely, I feel like it's definitely something I could get sucked into, because now I'm thinking about it. I've also watched The Circle on Netflix, Love is Blind, and those are all things where you're like, part of it's like super cringy, but then you're like, oh, you get so sucked in and you like want to know what's going to happen next. So those are some of my guilty pleasures too. We like watching a lot of stuff on Disney Plus, like the Imagineering that was on there. There's like this new thing that's like Be Our Chef, which is probably something you could watch with Cameron because it's all family stuff. Be Our Chef. And there's one called Shop Class, where it's like a contest where they're like building stuff. So that's kind of been like, those are the kind of things that I like to like put on TV while I'm doing something else, but it's like nice to kind of keep along. And then Jonathan and I kind of, I guess it's definitely binging, but we keep HGTV on like all the time. Like when we're cooking, when we're eating, like that is our white noise throughout the entire day. Property Brothers, Fixer Upper, like, oh my God, like all of those things, like just dreaming of maybe one day having something that looks half as decent as that.
Totally. I have gotten into the really bad habit of shopping for like interior decorating things online. I haven't purchased anything, but I could spend hours looking at paint colors and furniture, and that's kind of like my my guilty like phone time is I'm on my phone and I'm like spending hours looking at just furniture and paint and, you know, DIYs. Like, how can you paint your own cabinets and how can you like hack this piece of furniture and turn it into that? I love that stuff.
Yeah, before all of this like shelter in place and stuff, actually I'm sitting on a new couch and there's a coffee table in front of me because I was inspired by some of those things you were watching, and it's like, it's actually really nice. It's one of those that lifts up, and so it's a coffee table, but now it's like desk height, so it kind of converts into that. It's like,
so we're wrapping up and we've kept you on for a while, but I'm interested to hear about kind of some of your cooking inspirations and some of the things that you've been cooking.
Definitely my family is a big inspiration. I grew up around my grandma who cooked all the time, and her husband, my grandpa, would not want to eat the same thing 2 days in a row. So we'd have like a pot of sinigang and adobo and left in the fridge. And then he would want menudo the next day. And then he'd want kare kare the next day. And yeah, so my grandma is where I learned a lot of basics, like just like how to like, chop things and just watching her. Lately, I mean, that's like I cooked adobo and sinigang in the last 2 weeks. We made kimchi fried rice. Jonathan is actually, I'll give him credit, he is more the chef than I am. I'm the kind of person that just kind of, because I learned from my grandma, I eyeball everything and like, yeah, that's enough salt, taste it, and like, just kind of freestyle cook. But he loves to watch recipe videos, and so he's made, I don't even know what some of these dishes are called, but just to give you an idea, not only cooking, but baking, like on my birthday, I think this past year, he made a baked Alaska for my birthday. Like, right? Like, that's not easy. So he's definitely the chef. Yeah, we cook a lot. Like, he's learned to make Filipino stuff. We actually got stuff he's going to teach me how to make like bao. We love following recipes, making pastas, and we cook everything.
I love that.
That sounds delicious. I am ready for lunch now.
Jonathan, my birthday is in June, so I'll wait for my baked Alaska.
I think he went to the other room. But yeah, no, like our first Valentine's, I had chocolate dipped strawberries that he made like himself. Like he didn't order them. Our first date, I actually cooked I cooked adobo for him. That was our first date. So that's kind of been our thing. Like we cook for each other, and he made ratatouille for me one birthday. And
I love that. Well, and do you find that you can be creative with your cooking too, in a different way, in a different outlet?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like when it comes to creativity, it's like, just like we were talking about how like your environment can inform your dancing. Like, I feel like all of that can, right? Like they all influence each other. Some of the Filipino seasoning packets that we have for like sinigang and stuff, like my mom's a good example. She, like, maybe I shouldn't say it's like her secret. I'm sure other people do it, but that's what she sprinkles on her chicken wings and she fries them. And so it's like tamarind sour chicken wings. You should try it. There was one time in college where all I had in my freezer was lumpia wrappers and like sauces. I had like mayonnaise and sesame seed oil and sriracha, and I didn't want to go to a grocery store. So I cut the lumpia wrappers into triangles and deep fried them and made them into chips. and then I sprinkled that sinigang powder over it and shook it in there. And then I put the sesame seed oil, mayonnaise, and sriracha and made like the sesame spicy mayo and dipped the lumpia wrapper chips in them. They're good. You guys should try it. That year, I ended up cooking like trays. Like I think there was like 3 holiday parties in our family where I cooked like trays of them, and like people were around them, and like that was like like lumpia wrapper chips when we have like turkey and ham and like mashed potatoes, but like that's what everybody was talking about. I'm really proud of those. My dad was like, you should bag them up. Like, so.
Right? That sounds amazing. I'm super impressed. I'm super impressed with your resourcefulness and your creativity.
That'll be a good quarantine stay-at-home recipe for people. So we'll leave Erik's recipe in the show notes.
Yeah. And just season to your liking. A little tip though, if you do try it, those square lumpia wrappers are the best. I, through trial and error, figured like you could peel it to where 2 of them stick together. So you have a little bit more of a thickness. Because if you just fry one sheet by itself, it like curls up a little bit. But if you leave 2 sheets stuck together, then it's more like an actual chip.
Erik's going to make a TikTok.
I don't have that stuff in my freezer right now, but giving me an idea. Probably make a TikTok recipe soon.
Oh my gosh. Well, that sounds like the perfect way to wrap it up with Erik's secret sinigang chip recipe. Thank you so much.
I see what you did there. Lumpia wrap it up.
Okay. Only you would get my mom jokes. Cameron, actually, he's starting to tell me that he's embarrassed by me. Like if I like dance, he's like, stop, you're embarrassing me. Like, what? Really? Yeah. So anyway, thank you so much, Erik, just for being you and just for being on this podcast. You really are the light in our lives. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. It brings me so much joy to be able to see you, even though it's through Zoom. And I just so much enjoyed this time. I feel like it flew by, and I know that Devin and I are definitely going to want you back on another episode.
I would be honored. I had a great time. This was so many things for me, but all good. So I appreciate you guys taking time to invite me and have me on here. And hopefully the next episode that you guys do have me on, we can do face-to-face and in person, because I would love some hugs.
Definitely. And some baked Alaska, Jonathan.
Yeah. We'll have lumpia chips and baked Alaska. It's a party.
I love it. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Erik. We love you. And we can't say enough great things about you. And please stay safe. Give Jonathan a hug from us, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Same. And send my love to all of your siblings and your parents and everyone back home. Love you guys.
Oh, will do. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to the Collab podcast.
If you enjoyed this episode, please show your support by leaving a review on iTunes.
And be sure to subscribe to our show wherever you get your podcasts.
The conversation continues over on Instagram and YouTube with highlights from today's episode.
That's my sunshine when it's raining. That's my boo, yeah. Yeah, when I'm all alone, she pulled through. So when I